Contrivance. That is the keyword of this episode. The disapproval of something that is unnecessary and artificial. You could also label it as the director or writer forcing the story into the direction he wants without adhering to the story or character logic. No respect for continuity and all that. This applies to the main conflict of this movie and to the side plot created by the actions of Vice Admiral Holdo, which consequently lead to Poe's mutiny and also the whole Canto Bight sequence.
What's our plan?
Our plan, Captain? Not Commander, right? Wasn't it Leia's last official act to demote you for your Dreadnought plan?
So General Leia went shooting star. She came back with the use of the Force, more on that in the next episode, but this lands her in a coma, thus the leadership of the Raddus falls into the shoulders of Vice Admiral Holdo. Now I agree that Admiral Ackbar should not have been killed so that he could fulfill this role instead. But I also think you shouldn't get hung up over it since Ackbar's role isn't really that large anyway. He's mostly popular due to a meme, let's be fair.
It's a trap!
Holdo is a new character within the Star Wars universe. A trusted friend of Leia and has a bit of a reputation, at least that's what we're supposed to assume from Poe's dialogue.
That's Admiral Holdo? Battle of Chiron built Admiral Holdo?
Beyonto.
This is all we get about her in terms of storytelling, and we're told about it, not shown. We get no exploration of her character, only scenes that involve her that relate directly to the plot. The movie doesn't take time to build her character, but it does expect us to buy into the payoff later on. And that's a problem this movie has over and over. Poe asks her what the plan is, seeing how the Raddus and the rest of the Resistance fleet is being chased by the First Order. But Vice Admiral Holdo doesn't tell Poe a thing. Instead, she belittles him. His actions in the opening scene of the movie got him demoted because he disobeyed a direct order from a superior. He destroyed a dreadnought but got a lot of people killed in the process. A fair reason for a demotion, sure, but not exactly a fair reason to keep the man out of the loop. He still has quite a status and is established as someone trustworthy. In fact, Vice Admiral Holdo doesn't say a thing to almost anyone, leaving the majority of the crew and the audience in the dark. All she does is say some hopeful words. Poe wants to know what her plan is, wants to be made aware of the concrete actions to be taken to get out of the sticky situation they're in, yet all she does is belittle him. The framework here is confusing in terms of characterization. I still don't know whether the movie wants me to see Poe as the bad guy or the good guy here. Same goes for Holdo. For the sake of this video though, I'm gonna go with the framework that wants me to see Holdo as the antagonist and Poe as the protagonist. Mostly because this framework makes the most sense later in the movie, but we'll get to that. Finn and Rose come to Poe with a plan to board Snoke's ship and he says that Holdo doesn't need to know. But why she would fundamentally disagree with something like this is not really explored. But this further makes us, the audience, believe that Holdo can't be trusted. For reasons. If Poe mentioned that he suspects Holdo of being a mole, this would be a lot easier to follow, but the word mole doesn't come up once, neither with Poe nor with Holdo. From this comes the whole we have to board the Supremacy to shut down the tracker plotline, as Poe, Finn and Rose decide to take action into their own hands. They contact Maz Kanata and head to Canto Bight, and the rest is history, and we know how this plays out. Poe remains on the Raddus and eventually goes as far to commit mutiny because he thinks Holdo is leading the remaining Resistance members into oblivion. There's a lot that happens here. Poe first storms the bridge when the last support vessel is blown up. He demands to know what Holdo plans to do. She remains silent. Then he sees she is fueling the transports. Even though the whole movie is about them running out of fuel cause fuel is in short supply, I guess? I don't know. Whatever. Poe goes on a rant, calling Holdo a coward and then a traitor. Still, Holdo says nothing and orders Poe to be escorted from the bridge. Then we cut back a few minutes later. Both are suddenly talking to each other in the hangar bay. Poe is trying to explain what Finn and Rose are doing, and Holdo replies that he's put, and I quote, the survival of the Resistance on bad odds and put them all at risk. There is no time now, we have to get clear of the cruiser. This prompts Poe to commit the mutiny. Even after watching this scene multiple times, I still wonder how Holdo's dialogue makes sense. Remember, I am looking at this from the audience's point of view, and we don't know what Holdo is up to yet. For all we know, she has no plan, while Poe has. Yet she calls him out for placing bets on bad odds. Now, having seen the movie, we know she did have a plan, and with that knowledge I can kind of understand why she calls Poe out on the bad odds thing. Yet she still doesn't tell him about her plan. Guns are pulled, Holdo is being held in her place while Poe rushes to the bridge. He sees Holdo break free and then locks the door, but while he awaits Finn and Rose to give him the go to jump to lightspeed, he hears over the comm that they are captured. Then the door to the bridge is blown open. Poe takes cover behind a console of sorts, holding a gun out. Remember this, I will come back to that in a moment. Leia appears and stuns him. Then we see an unconscious Poe being carried onto one of the transports while Holdo speaks to Leia. She says, "He's a troublemaker, I like him." Remember all the interactions between Poe and Holdo? Remember how she belittled him? Remember how Holdo again and again didn't want to tell him a thing due to reasons? Remember the guns aimed at her? Poe was willing to shoot her if she resisted. But no, he's a troublemaker, a boy with a toy, and she likes it. Now Poe, and also the audience, learns of Holdo's actual plan. She knew, somehow, that the First Order was tracking only the Raddus and wasn't scanning for smaller ships. Can anyone tell me why? Seems like a sensible thing for the First Order to do, to make sure that no one gets away. That way they can escape the crate, which is an old rebel base with tech that allows them to send messages to the Outer Rim and call for help. Okay, why can't the Raddus do that? It seems like a pretty advanced ship, yet an old base with old tech can do something that the Raddus cannot? Okay, let's back up for a moment, zoom out on this part. After the Resistance comes out of Lightspeed, Leia, Finn, Poe, and this lady discuss a plan of action. This lady says, and I quote, "We need to find a base with enough power to send a message into the Outer Rim." Then the First Order shows up and they establish that they've been tracked through Lightspeed. It's useless to try again, and so we have our main plot of the movie. The Resistance needs to escape, thus the plan to shut down the tracker is born. It's a pretty solid conflict so far. Classic storytelling. The protagonists are obstructed by the antagonists from reaching their goal. Maybe you already see where I'm going with this. If not, keep watching or listening or however you consume this content. I'm going to be overly clear about this so there's no mistake. The protagonists are the Resistance and their fleet. The antagonists are the First Order and their fleet. The goal of the protagonist is reaching a base with enough power to send a message into the Outer Rim. The obstruction is the Resistance is being tracked through light speed. The plot is all about how the Resistance gets around this obstruction, or at least it should be, because that is how it's set up. But how does the Resistance get around this obstruction? They don't. They drift through empty space for a few hours and... Oh wait, what is that? A mineral planet, that is exactly what we need. No lightspeed needed. Thank goodness, what a coincidence. What? A lightspeed tracker on Snoke's ship? Who cares about that? We don't need lightspeed.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
Holdo stays behind, for reasons, which allows her to help the fleeing Resistance members once they are fired at by the First Order. Just to be clear, Holdo does not stay behind because she already decided to drill the Raddus through Snoke's ship. That decision comes later. Yet, she still stays behind for... I don't know. Well, I do. The out-universe reason is that Holdo needs to be on the Raddus so she can do the lightspeed thing. The in-universe reason is... well, there is no in-universe reason, that's the whole problem. Remember how I said that being tracked through lightspeed caused for a solid conflict? I meant that. It's only after that part where the conflict becomes void of logic and thus contrived. I'm talking about the space chase.
They won't last long burning fuel like this. It's just a matter of time.
The entire space chase is also one giant contrivance. Never at any point does Star Wars establish that their space is different from our space. It is an empty vacuum, just like we know it to be in the real world. So, let me ask you this. Why, in the name of storytelling, would a ship come to a full stop when running out of fuel? There is no friction in space, there is no atmosphere to slow you down. So when you're going at top speed and you run out of fuel, you'll keep going at top speed. Yes, the physics in space have been stretched in the Star Wars universe, but never to a point where it outright denies the legitimacy of the main plot of a movie. Do you see now why so many people have a problem with The Last Jedi? Again, logic is disregarded for the plot, in other words, contrived. By now you may have picked up on a certain pattern in this video. There's always but one question that keeps coming back as I address these scenes. Why? An old base on Crate can do what an advanced ship like the Raddus can't? Why? Ships lose momentum in space? Why? Holdo doesn't tell Poe the plan from the beginning. Why? Poe doesn't tell Holdo about the shut down the tracker plan, even though that is the conflict present in the movie and there's no reason to distrust Holdo. Why? Holdo knew that the First Order was tracking only the Raddus. Why? The First Order didn't bother tracking smaller ships. Why? Holdo stays behind on the Raddus. Why? Okay, I could go on, but you get the point. A fundamental question is absent all the time. When setting up a story, a plot, a scene, you ask yourself, what is it about? Who is it about? Where does it take place? How does it happen? And most of all, why does it happen? That question is not answered in The Last Jedi so many times. There's actually a sort of test for this which involves children. I don't know if it has an official name, I heard it somewhere or read it somewhere, but it goes something like this. If you show a movie to a child around 7 to 10 years old, and that child starts asking questions about the logic of the story that you as an adult can't find a logical or reasonable explanation for, you know there's something wrong with the story. You remember me saying at the start that this video would be about contrivance? Well, this is it. Logic is thrown aside for the sake of the plot. Plot points are swiftly brushed over. Character continuity, plot continuity, even established lore from previous movies are disregarded so this movie can have its main conflict and a conflict between Poe and Holdo. Specifically with Poe and Holdo, everything about that conflict relies on god-awful communication. Basically, characters not doing something. That is what it means to have a contrived plot. The Poe/Holdo conflict relies solely on this characters not doing something that any sane person would do in that same situation. That is bad storytelling. I also mentioned the confusion about the framework between Poe and Holdo and how I wasn't sure who the movie wanted me to see as the bad guy. Well, as the Resistance heads to Crate, I definitely get the movie wants me to see Holdo as the hero. She was more interested in protecting the light than seeming like a hero, Leia says to Poe. But I don't buy into that at all. If anything, I am only more confused as to why she didn't tell Poe her plan from the get-go. If she was so interested in protecting the light, why did she go about it in such an ill-suited way? You see why I'm confused. The movie wants me to feel something for Holdo, but I don't feel like that in the slightest. I don't know this character. The movie spends no time on fleshing her out. We also do not understand why she didn't just tell Poe the plan. The revelation of her actual intentions only make us more confused while the movie clearly wants us to think the best of Holdo. Let me be clear on this. Plot twists resolve questions, they do not create them. So in conclusion, the Holdo-Poe plotline is a great example of how a writer is slave to his or her story and not a master. Within The Last Jedi, established rules and continuity are disregarded for the sake of the plot. When you write a story, you set up a world and characters that inhabit them. That world has rules and the characters have, well, character. You as a writer need to adhere to your own rules and to your own established logic. You can't have your characters do what you want them to do wherever you want them to do it. Imagine if Dumbledore decided at the end of the Half-Blood Prince that the Death Eaters were actually the good guys and he joins them to serve Voldemort. Kills Harry Potter in the process. Imagine Rowling saying in an interview, yeah, but I like Dumbledore being evil, so I made it that way. Can you imagine the outrage? Like I said, a writer is a slave to his or her own story, not a master. If you think my explanation of this is shit, I suggest you read Brian McDonald's Invisible Ink about this. His book about storytelling is neatly compact and straight to the point about a variety of storytelling mechanisms, including the master-slave thing. This video turned out to be a little longer because I decided to look at the broader spectrum than just the Holdo and Poe plotline. I thought it was necessary because the main plot suffers from the exact same problems, as I've explained. Feel free to challenge my stance on this in the comments. I love a good discussion about storytelling. Next episode we'll be looking at the Force and why the introduction of new Force abilities didn't fall into the good graces of many people. That is a wrap for now. Until the next story. Cheers.